Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. So if you don't, please just type it out in the chat. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the SIM Online Masterclass Series, Session 2. So I'm greeting you guys from Singapore. And the topic for today is managing technology and innovation. So just a gentle reminder, if you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to type your questions in the chat below. And our speakers and staff will assist to answer your questions. And there will be a short briefing for Grenoble's master program later on after the masterclass. So let me just introduce the speaker for today, Mr. John Lee. So he has over 28 years hands-on experience in ICT operations and telecommunications industry. He assumed different roles in both private and government entities such as Apple Computer Singapore, British Telecoms Asia Pacific, and GovTech. So he has been teaching part-time in SIM since 1990s, and he brings along a wealth of experience from the industry. So without further ado, let's welcome John. John, over to you.
Thank you very much. Josephine, it's nice to be here for this evening. I'm just going to bring us through some of the services that we are covering in terms of this master course. So if you could permit me, I'm just going to turn on the slideshow. Yes, just want to check. Is that fine? Thank you very much. So welcome again to everyone for this evening's session. This masterclass basically is to just provide an overview of the Managing Technology and Innovations program that is provided by Grenoble and delivered in Singapore. This program has been running for quite a few years now. It's always being refreshed. And the whole idea is to look into the areas of managing innovation with case studies about organizations that have done quite well and some of the areas that needs to be addressed as we go through this whole process, and what is the importance that we need. Why is it important that innovation is critical to any organization? So as an agenda, what we cover, and this is just only a small portion, and it provides an overview of the areas that will be touched on within this module, which includes things like innovation that are contributed by governments, R&D, organizations within the industries, partners, suppliers, end users, and so on. And we also would go into areas that looks at the ecosystem that's needed to ensure that any ideas of innovation gets promoted and supported by the organization. And what are the key factors that would basically increase adoption within the marketplace and also acceptance within the organization. As with any change like innovations, you can expect that there will be significant resistance to change within the organization itself and besides the marketplace. And those are the challenges that will be discussed over the course with specific case studies that are provided. And we'll also look at that in the context of innovation management, because if you would have heard of terms like competence destroying with any innovation, and we'll talk about what that actually means. And as part of the course, one of the key things would be what we call a simulation of what is a real world situation. So with that, we use the Harvard simulation programs that gives the student an opportunity to look at the various factors that they would have to think through with regards to this whole process when products are being introduced. How are they going to be handled? What would be the best approach? And so they go through a simulated example of if they were to be the one that is in charge of deciding resources that needs to be placed into various parts of the organization, how would they work through that as a group, so that in that whole simulation, they are also learning as a group, looking at the various challenges, the ideas. And in that simulation, it also provides an optimum solution, if you like. And it goes through various ideas, various changes in the scenarios as part of the simulation, which basically reflects on what happens in the real world when organizations are facing existing markets and how do they rebrand themselves? How do they repackage? How do they look at revenue models that needs to be created as a result of moving them from an existing product line to a new product line, and how do they position it so that it gains acceptance? So we'll look at that as part of this course itself. Okay, so as a start, we're looking at first defining what is innovation. So this course looks at clearly defining what actually results in the final innovation that gets adopted. So if you look at any trend, what normally happens is that there will be some ideas that comes up, and innovation really is how do I incorporate those creative ideas into new or improved products and processes, or a combination of both. And if you look at the following slide, it actually shows you that typically innovation starts with an idea. And if you look at any products in the marketplace or any process or services, it starts first in the creative minds of individuals or in the creative minds of groups that have come together with a focus of creating something new. Now, that idea alone is not everything that will bring it to success, because in ideas, it needs to go through some form of proof of concept, prototyping, and then eventually into a product that could be used in a commercial enterprise or an organization. And that includes not only products, we'll look at some of what we call innovations that are based on services, that are based on processes besides the traditional products. So innovation really is not a single action, but a combination of a lot of processes over a period of time with the right key people being involved, with the right allocation, with the right support that is required from senior management so that they would allocate resources for the kinds of activities that happens on this road to an actual successful implementation of a service or a product. So this slide highlights that typically it takes this course where you're looking at it as an investigation, as a research, and then trying to formulate that into some knowledge or ideas that could be applicable in the context of products or services that the world really needs. And that's when technology becomes the products that we see today. And these are examples that we see here, starting perhaps from the initial research and development that was into nuclear fission or fusion, and then going into developing products that could be for novel use, as in the case of nuclear medicine, or in the case of the less than novel use, which is in nuclear bombs. So you can see that there are also ethical questions that needs to be dealt with. It's not just only the application of technology as we go into a world that is very globalized. We need to consider that it's not just only the legal aspect of it, but what does it mean in terms of the ethical applications or the introduction of products? And we've seen that, like in the case of America, where we have, cannabis or marijuana becoming legalized, but it may not be ethical in some contexts. So as organizations go global, it's not so simple to say that what works for the country where it's invented in is going to be equally acceptable or adopted into another country. So these are some of the sensitivities that needs to also be taken into consideration. Now, typically, if you look at innovation, and typically there will be three areas that are general classifications. One would be incremental innovations in any products that you see, whether it's a toothbrush or a phone, a smartphone or a laptop. You see that there are typically small changes that happens in the process, the product design, the size of the product where we get, and also perhaps some innovations that combines features together. If you trace the history of our smartphone today, it's really the combination of laptops with mobile communications into earlier years that included things like the products that came out with PDA, the personal digital assistant. If you're from that generation, you'll know what I mean. And how cameras that used to be a separate product on its own is now combined into smartphones. And also what we are doing right now in terms of Zoom as a service that's taken off. And then we have the sustaining innovation, which looks at how do they use that as a new product line, And how do we continue to tap into the goodwill of that product and how long it's been in the marketplace so that it becomes like the de facto standards, and that's what we are seeing now with the smartphones. And then we've got the other extreme type of innovation, which deals with disruptive innovations. And those are really the breakthrough that changes the world, the completely a different way of doing things like voice over IP, or what we see with some of the companies that have come out as a result of the new challenges that gets presented in a new kind of environment like COVID, where we are seeing a lot of traditional firms that are basically possibly being at risk of not continuing into the future. There's a new way of doing things, and we'll look at how does these compare in terms of actual companies and products. So we'll trace those case studies and explain what are the challenges that they faced, what were the problems that they encountered as the market changes, as new challenges that has perhaps not ever been imagined now comes out from another side of the market that may not have been anticipated. So examples of disruptive innovations we've seen of recent would be Uber, where the world's biggest service company that provides these types of services are really, they don't really own the assets. So traditionally, if you look at any business, that business requires some ownership of the capital or the assets. But in the case of Uber, you don't see that. Also in the case of Facebook, it's the biggest media company. It does not really create any content. The content is actually created by the end users themselves, which are people like us. And then the world's biggest retailer, it doesn't really own any goods. You can see that at Alibaba, you can see that also with Amazon. And also Airbnb, as a service provider, they are making tremendous headway just before COVID. As the biggest provider of accommodation that does not really own any real estate. So this would be some of the companies and services that would be case studied and which provides some understanding of what are these types of different innovations. We'll also look into the impact that innovation has that could really change the way we do things. And these would be in the social and user practices. You can see things like car sharing or bike sharing, and we're seeing that right wherever we are. Energy services company moving from the traditional petrol-based or diesel-based into a more like electric vehicles that we are seeing being introduced as part of the green initiative that we see globally. And then we also see radical technical innovations like nanotechnologies. We're seeing fuel cell vehicles. We are seeing self-drive cars, whole house that are basically easily retrofitted, and that just gets delivered to the site and it's all assembled very quickly. As we saw in what happened in China when COVID hit, how they were able to basically build a hospital within a matter of 2 or 3 days. And we also look at some of the processes that brings out new products like biomethane, as well as areas that we are already seeing, which is like solar energy, fuel efficient, conventional cars, the whole green environment or green product concepts and ideas. So we're seeing all of that as part of the kinds of activities that are covered within this module. So if you look at the types of innovation that we will typically go through in this course would be to look at the various segments or types. One would be product, we'll look at process, we'll look at how organizations are continuously innovating, how are they reorganizing themselves in terms of new venture divisions that gives more specific focus into innovation, or outsourcing being one of the very old traditional ones, which you would find in management, total quality management, lean. Those have been around for more than 40 years now. And it still continues to, see improvements in processes that streamlines an organization's efficiency, reducing costs, improving bottom line and profits. You see some of the more traditional types, which are just-in-time manufacturing, materials requirements planning, enterprise resource planning, And we're seeing some of the new introduction in those areas of manufacturing, and also in terms of artificial intelligence and robotics being applied right across all different industries. And today we also see that with nanotechnology. And I'll give some examples of those particular areas in this short overview in the later slides. So commercial arrangements are also a type of innovation that has started from way before, where people were thinking, how can we make it more palatable for people to buy my service, or whether I can change from a CAPEX model to a more OPEX model. We saw that with Xerox 30 over years ago, when they were, when they first came out with industrial printing. Each of the machines typically would cost more than 100,000, and they had to think about how could we make it more interesting for potential companies to buy, and those would be a very expensive CAPEX type of cost if you were to take on that 150,000 printer. Yet they want the service, so what they did was basically repackage it into a more OPEX type model. And we've seen that happening right across. If you look at today with outsourcing of IT services. In the past, if you wanted IT services to be used in your organization, you had to go and set up a computer room, basically hire technological experts, and basically manage the hardware, software, and the networking. Today, you get your services basically on a per seat basis, where you can have software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service, depending on whatever fits your business spend model that your company basically would prefer, more towards an OPEX rather than a CAPEX model. So those are commercial innovations that we have seen over the years, and we will review some of those companies that have been successful in applying some of this innovation in that particular type. And then marketing, obviously, we see that with direct marketing today, where traditionally marketing was not possible with no web presence. And with marketing now, we are getting a lot of understanding of who the consumers are, what sort of products, features are they looking for. And these are through without having to be physically present in the physical marketplace, but across the web. Yeah? And how do companies like Google and Facebook basically use that as a means of understanding products, demands, and the features that customers are basically looking for. And then services like new financing or leasing services that basically converts how do I match revenues to cost. And a good example that has been happening for quite a long time is this whole area of airline industries, where airlines don't typically buy planes. You would get an intermediate leasing company, like in the case of SIA, would be SIA Leasing, where they'll buy those planes that each of them would cost probably 150 million to 200 million. If you were to buy that as a CAPEX and you match that against the revenue that you get, even in a year, you'll never be able to turn into a profitable enterprise. So by having a leasing company, you effectively then match your revenues, which are collected from your passengers, against the kinds of mortgage or the servicing costs that goes with basically like leasing a plane rather than owning the plane, and having to take care of the amortization or depreciation issues that goes behind that. So these are really innovation. So if you look at a typical type or degree of innovation, particularly in the area of products innovation, it will be things like nanotechnology. These are the big things that's coming out, rather relatively big, but really they are very micro, because nanotechnologies are typically developing through processing. You develop a new product, as you can see. So we're dealing with nanotubes that are like 10 atoms in terms of the size, but the benefit of it is that these carbon atoms have a lot more properties as a result of the processing that has been done, that creates tensile strengths of steel 100 times that, but only a 1/6 of its weight, and 40 times stronger than graphite fibers. So with this new processing comes new products and services. Because of these innovation, it's now going to create new products that would be coming online, And these are the characteristics that they do have as a result of the processing that has taken place. Conducting electricity better than copper, it conducts. And it's going to then be used in computer chips because you're going to have, be able to have less consumption of power, which is great for green. It's going to radiate much less heat, so it actually saves in terms of computerized cooling systems that are needed. And also in nanotechnology in electronics, like memory storage or nanolithography type of products for films, transistors that are made from nanocarbons rather than the typical silicon-based solutions that's been around for quite a while. We're talking about fiber mesh used for OLED or organic LED, flexi smartphones designed. We're seeing some of the first generation, second generation coming out in the marketplace with Samsung products, and also into fabrics as well. Interestingly, those kinds of nano products are also used in things that provides, what was Kevlar in the early generations. Now you're actually using, nano type fabrics that are bulletproof, stain repellent, antibacterial, antimicrobial type of characteristics that goes with it, all because of processing that could happen. Other areas would be things like process innovation. And as I've mentioned, product actually leads sometimes to process innovation, and process innovation as a result of the refinement and the development actually converts its raw materials into something that is new, like nanotechnology, for example. You can see process innovation. It's been in use for quite a while, like microfiltration, reverse osmosis, which we see in our water filtration companies in Singapore and also internationally where they are deployed, even in desalination kind of solutions for water demands. And we know that water is going to be a very major commodity in the near future. As based on global warming, we're going to see a lot more of such products coming out. So this slide basically highlights new products, how it stimulates process innovations, and in turn, how process innovation actually provides a feedback into new processes which would stimulate product innovation. So this is one of the areas that we would cover as part of this course. We also look at service innovation. How has that basically impacted companies? How does it provide newer ways in which I can reach the market? So service innovation includes your internet banking, where traditionally you had to, if you are from the generation I was from, perhaps your parents or grandparents' time, you basically had to wait to the bank opening hours before you could engage with the bank to do your banking activities. But today, you've got your ATM. So similarly with service innovation, you find that companies are always challenging themselves to see what way can we reach out to the customers. So you've got your ordering online, you've got your apps from the App Store that you can easily download to your smartphones, order your products, whether it's KFC or McDonald's, as in this case, the slide here. And in that way, it's interesting to also reflect on the fact that McDonald's were basically challenged in the some years back, where the US government decided that they were going to increase the minimum wage. And so McDonald's then would have the, less profit because they basically had to pay more for the service personnel that was behind the counter. And so they came up with this idea of, making the customers do the order entry with the, the LCD panels that we see in all the McDonald's outlets. And the customer now becomes an employee, if you like. So these are some of the innovative way in which services are actually delivered, but in partnership with the end users or the consumers themselves, rather than an employee that works for the company, as was the case with McDonald's before the LCD and inputs across those LCD as as an input, order taking process was pushed out from behind the counter to in front of the counter, and at the same time allowing the customers to be happy doing that because it was something novel. We can see that also with the kinds of cookies and software and data collection in all of the software that we use today, Microsoft basically confirms that the kinds of information that they collect from us as a result of us as users fueling or providing inputs into their next generation products. I remember I was working in a company called Global Crossing years back, and we actually went to Microsoft in Seattle, and I was brought around by one of the directors there, and he was showing me around the campus, and there was a very interesting building that was in the middle of the campus. It was all dark, all darkened with smoke windows. And I asked him, what is that? He says that's a building that not even Microsoft folks are allowed to go in unless you happen to be, in a joint project with, Microsoft's, partner, which includes the CIA and the NSA as well. So we don't really know what kind of solutions are included in the licensing that we download, whether it's Microsoft or Adobe or Oracle. The kinds of information that is there, according to Microsoft, really is to pick up, the nuances of consumers and the changes by which they are using their products, and the reasoning and the rationale behind why they are collecting such kinds of information is that it will go into their prototype so that the next generation of products are going to fit very nicely into the trends that they are seeing globally. So regardless of whether you're a user in Singapore or you're a user, internationally, they are collecting a lot of information. And because the products are really theirs, they feel that the onus is on them to develop solutions that will basically continue to keep their market happy, their consumers. And in a way that also strengthens their position and their control over the marketplace. So what we are seeing really is, you can call it insidious, or you can call it very innovative, but companies are doing that. You look at Google, you look at Amazon, you look at Facebook, they're quite happy to share the fact that some of these information are, for the right reasons, for the benefit of the consumers. This is where we are going. And of course, the other side would be the ethical questions that goes behind it. And also for innovation in the area of management, we see that constantly with organizations and reorganizations where new divisions comes up. And the whole idea really is, how can we manage the resources? How can we set apart a division or a department that could focus on a particular strategy, whether it's a focus on the customer, as in, customer relationship management. How do we improve customer service quality? How do we do it internally with TQM or Lean or Six Sigma? We're talking about continuous improvement. We're looking at quality improvements. We're also seeing how can we measure those improvements and how can we get teams to work together. And that's part of management innovation. We see that. We also see that in the area of organization innovation, even for products, that you can see that with Moodles and with Blackboards and whatever sort of platforms that you would use for delivering information or basically sharing information and getting more collaborative work to take place. We also look at key factors that helps to foster or helps to support innovation. So we're talking about good leadership, organization mindset. What are they like? You can see they're more organic. Generally, with innovation, you need to have a more organic organization rather than a more mechanistic organization. And then in innovation, what would be the appropriate structure that needs to be adopted? Who would be the champions? Who would be the key, key shareholders, the individuals? So we're talking about senior management being of the same mindset, having the right team that you need to bring together with the right core skills, with the right attitude. You're talking about, creating an environment or a, creative climate that makes sure that that organization works together, and how do you foster that? So these are some of the factors which we will cover as part of the course. And then we'll look at the various sources of innovation. You look at individuals, venture capitalists, industrialists, corporate undertakings in some cases, where companies would allocate a significant amount of research and development funding so that it has its own autonomy, it's got its own decision making, and it doesn't really report into a typical organization where, you know, if you are, for example, Samsung or LG, you know, they don't, when they have their R&D, they don't typically report back into the head of manufacturing, for example. We go directly to the group CEO. And then we'll look at the innovation that typically are done not within the organization itself, but from suppliers. So suppliers actually do create an opportunity for us to take advantage of their products. We'll see some examples there. We'll look at government-funded research and also end users as well. So as a start, if you look at individuals, these are people that we probably would see immediately and recognize who they are. Sahin, Mr. Sahin has, you know, obviously been in the news recently with BioNTech and Pfizer setting up one of their production centers in Singapore. We've seen also the impact that Zoom had with the current work from home environment. We also have seen the previous generation with the founder of the World Wide Web, where he introduced the hypertext markup language and the hypertext transport protocol that we are using, you know, as we are talking, you know, with the access into the, you know, the internet. And then we'll look at the sources of innovation that comes from corporate undertakings. So a good example here is just a ranking of some of the companies, the amount of R&D spending that they have done. You know, year over year, you see there's an increase, and how does that match against the revenues as well? And also, if you're looking at things like the years, the profit against the profit, you can see all of these, the various companies, and this is just a snapshot. Year over year, you see that there are going to be changes. As of last year, by revenue, you can see Johnson & Johnson, their revenue was about 82.6 billion. Roche was about 26.9, Novartis 48.7, and they actually spent as much as 25%, not of their, you know, not of their profits, but of their revenue. So you can see the emphasis that such organizations have made into research and development, because to them, that is the means that allows me to keep my market share and also to continue to survive as an organization or as a conglomerate. Those are the kinds of spending that we are actually seeing and that we witness from empirical data that is available from them. Sources of innovation, this is an example, suppliers typically. So suppliers includes Intel, Bosch. We may not be always aware, but Bosch is an OEM, original equipment manufacturer for BMWs, for Mercedes and so on. What they do is they basically label it at the factory. They basically provide the core product, and then before it leaves the office, they basically label it or brand it that way. I used to work for Apple, and I remember Apple with the laser writers that was with an Apple stamp with the Apple logo was actually out of HP's factory, you know, in the world. But as it leaves the factory, they are producing it specifically with the right form factor, with the specification which Apple has, you know, placed upon them as part of the partnership as a supplier. Same for Bosch. If you look at spark plugs, if you look at you know, chips, Bosch has been the one that's behind a lot of the German-based organization in vehicle manufacturers like Audi and Volkswagen and so on. And they develop beyond the traditional manufacturing components for products like cars would be consumer products. And you know, if you're more, you have got more time, take a look at Bosch, you see that they're also into energy management, they're into the Internet of Things products. They do outsourcing as well, where they take you know, services and solutions out to the marketplace. And then we see Intel, AMD also, and also companies like Value. They provide thermal, safe driving, visualization products. And that comes maybe branded as BMW or branded as Mercedes, but the solution providers are actually the technology suppliers that provides that you know, capability, emissions control, UV air purifying systems, and so on. And then another source of innovation is led especially for very deep very expensive, very high cost investment, typically by the governments, where we're talking about a break even, possibly of 15 years, 20 years type of investment. So unless you're very deep pockets, typically the governments, those kinds of innovation has a very long gestation period before it really becomes a product that organizations could use. So for those kinds of funding, you need government, not just venture capitalists. We're talking about billions of dollars. As you can see, the US investment in nanotechnology just for that 4-year period was about 50 billion. And then you got biotechnology, which are also government funded, including our government as well in Singapore. So you can see that this just cuts across the various industries, the amount of money that's spent. And we expect that healthcare will be one of the key things, especially so today. Lots of research into vaccines or things that ails us with lupus, with cancer, vaccines of all sorts of products that are primarily focused on human well-being. And then we've got the second kind of investments which are into computer and electronics, software and internet. Then you got the vehicles, the various industries, including chemicals and energy, as well as aerospace and defense. And of course, some of these budgets are ever not really publicly known in terms of, especially in the area of military type of innovation that we see, because those are considered a black budget that no one ever sees at all. So this is just a trend of R&D spending. And then the other sort of innovation actually comes from the end users. We don't think much of end users being a producer of innovation, but they are, because they provide feedback, they provide information that's related to new designs. And like I say, the producers of software services or software solutions are actually picking up a lot of data from the users, almost instantly as we are using it. Because they basically look up at they look at the users' nuances when they apply some of the applications, when they run it, what sort of functions do they use so that they can streamline that instead of using 3 or 4 keys or going to various modules or sub-modules before they get to where they want. They are now making it, instead of 2 or 3 steps, they are streamlining it to 1 step, for example. So you can see that those kinds of improvements in new services, in new versions that comes up are really based on the user's expectation, because they are the ones using it. So end users actually do provide feedback and provide contributions to how new services or new products are actually being introduced. So end users provide that. So end users do hold significant power when it comes to novel solutions. So they also have the potential to revise or re-innovate existing products. And some of these are through feedback, some of these are through CRM systems that basically takes in suggestions and feedback that goes into the next generation of products that are introduced. We will look at factors that impacts adoption, because innovation is no good if there is no way to understand what is it that makes for successful adoption and for innovation to be incorporated into products and services. So we'll look at the trends, a typical trend that takes place from basic research to applied research, then into its introductions, what's needed in terms of investment. Now, these process of activities are actually mirrored in the Harvard simulation program that students who participate in this module will basically do as part of the curriculum of this module. They will work on the simulation in groups, and they will basically be working at, challenging each other, debating what would be the best way to invest the funds, at what stage. And the Harvard simulation actually goes through different scenarios over a period of 4 or 5 years, introducing new parameters that the students have to debate over, and then making a decision as a group. Should I be investing in product A or B or C? This is the current market condition. These are the profitability. This is the potential of that new product. It may not be there right now, but it's going to happen maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. So here we are bringing the student through the challenges that people involved in innovation have to face. So this course isn't just talking about the theory with case studies. We're talking about actually bringing the students through the actual activities, the challenges that impacts them at different phases in the actual development of the product as it looks into the marketplace, the investments that are needed, when should we exit the market, how do we, beforehand start to look at a new product line that is promising, that is new, but may not have the market right now because people are not aware of it. And then investing in some of the marketing activities, investing in some of the new processes that could result in new products that could come online maybe in the next 2 years or 3 years when your existing product line or your existing product revenue starts to wane or starts to decline, so that the business continues to be able to survive, if you like. So we look at also how do organizations, when they go into innovation, how do they capture and keep those values so that things like patent rights, secrecy, lead time, and then what would be the outcome as well. Obviously, outcomes would include things like financial performance. How does it match within the, which part of the segment of the market does it go into? We'll look at those value capture. And then with every innovation, you will encounter this dilemma, which is related to an organization with an existing product lines. They are always looking at efficiency that requires stability, a more, if you like, mechanistic organization like production and factory production, where you increase the efficiency so that your unit cost actually goes down. And then you've got the, something that pulls it into looking at what will this product still be interesting 5 years from now? And if not, then we need to produce new products and services, create new creativity environments, and create their own little ecosystem or their own teams, try out new ideas. And that's typically a different environment that's more organic, making it more loose and flexible. And so how do we manage that? And in most cases, organizations tend to keep them separate. So there would be an R&D dedicated, type of department or division that's given that autonomy, and it doesn't really, go into a fixed mechanistic fact like factory production where efficiency is always the focus. So the dynamics of innovation, we'll look at, poor investments. Typically, when you make a transition to a new technology, what you see is a resistance to that, because you already have spent significant billions of dollars and you have invested years to already create this product. You've got a good thing going. And typically there's a lot of resistance to trying to go into a new product because it could be competency destroying, if you like, or your existing pool of expertise may no longer be needed. So take, for example, the mobile phones, and when smartphone was on the horizon from their perspective in the early years, maybe 15 years ago, they were doing very well, very, very profitable. If you look at Nokia, if you look at Motorola, Ericsson, they were doing very well. So when the smartphone was being a potential challenger to them, a lot of them found it very difficult to, basically walk away from a very good revenue stream with good profits to take on something that could basically, be maybe a win, maybe a not. So in that case, what sort of decisions what sort of factors do we take into account when we could potentially be destroying it if we move into smartphones? Because smartphones are more towards a laptop type with software solutions versus a traditional hardware based, with a switch type network. So you can see that with migration to a new technology, you're going to be faced with challenges of how do I reconceptualize the product. And we saw that also with the telecommunication industry that was traditionally voice switching, voice-based, analog-based, to a more digital based infrastructure with digitized voice, right? So the way in which telecoms organizations and companies used to make their money and make profits was primarily to provide switch voice, which is analog systems with its own infrastructure that typically costs billions and needs a period of payback before you're happy that you've got your profits from your original investment. And then now here comes a whole new world of internet voice over IP. How do I, change my billing? So if you look at, if you've been using telecommunication services, as I have from the 1960s and 70s, when people were making international calls, you always say, hurry up, because the amount of time that you spend will be billed in terms of a price to you. Because the longer you speak, the more expensive it is. The longer you're on the line, you're basically using up the channel to, that is dedicated to you. But today, that common channel is used by, millions of users, if you like, called the internet. And so the billing now has been converted into more of the volume of data that you transmit based on whether it's computer data that you're sending or your voice data or your video. It's all going to be a different billing kind of or revenue model rather than the traditional one, which is how do I set up meters to measure the amount of minutes or seconds that the person is using up that channel. So these are some of the challenges when new innovation are being introduced. So the question that's always asked with new products is, what if it cannibalizes our existing range of products that becomes obsolete, that nobody really wants? So these are the kinds of questions and debates that goes on. Do we, already having spent billions of dollars, do we walk away from that to explore something that's new but will potentially be the market in the future, right? So if companies like mobile phones were looking into the future and they had expanded enough and invested enough in the new technology known as the smartphone, they're probably going to still be around, and still be a significant player. But we can see with Nokia, with Lucent, and so on, they have moved away into the quiet. So now we are seeing, a new set of players that are dominating the marketplace with smartphones. So we can see, besides that, with the challenges today, especially with globalization of technology, is that the product life cycle, where the company can basically invest and then realize its profits before it reaches a state of decline, is now getting shorter and shorter because of the very intensive competition that's facing in the that they are facing in the marketplace, and also the globalization of technology, where knowledge are easily transferable. The world is really quite borderless, if you like, and also the challenges that we are facing with new innovation or new environmental changes that is brought on, like COVID-19, right? How things are being done, online services. We've seen recently, only at the end of last month, Zoom communications shares actually tumbled about 17% when the video conferencing company signaled a faster than expected drop in demand as people start to return to the office, right? And again, they made the money when COVID happened and everybody was working from home. People still need to be connected, and Zoom then made money, and a few other companies in that particular industry make money. But what happens when things become endemic, or as declared, and whatever happens when COVID actually starts to go away, then maybe business will possibly impact the business. So we can see that, going back to the previous slide, you can see that your product life cycle, where you're making money and being profitable, gets shorter and shorter. So there's a lot of intense competition that's actually happening in the marketplace because technology are very quickly taken up, and then this may not be the first mover, but maybe the early adopters, but also you can find in some cases the late movers that do benefit rather than the first mover. I just want to take this quote from a recent book that was written by Klaus Schwab. You probably can find that. It's called COVID-19, The Great Reset. What he says is that the pandemic may not completely transform the world, but it's likely to accelerate many of the changes that are taking place. And in turn, there is a cascading effect, right? It sets in motion other changes. And the only certainty that he sees, and Klaus Schwab was really, he's the chairman of the World Economic Forum. He's the one who started it. And brought a lot of the governments together, once a year to discuss about some of the challenges that governments really have. And what he sees also for certain is that the changes are not going to be linear. there's going to be significant sharp discontinuities that will happen and will continue to happen. So in conclusion, I'm sorry I'm a bit late in closing. Innovation really is absolutely necessary for any organization that wants to survive in a very highly complex competitive market, as they do today. And successful exploitation of new ideas that brings it into a marketable innovation is going to be critical for an organization to continue to survive and stay ahead. So that brings me to the conclusion of my short presentation about the course. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think that was really wonderful, and I really learned a lot just by listening to you to this session, and I hope everyone out there would have shared the same sentiment as well. Okay, so I just wanted to urge people, you know, those of you who are still tuning in, please feel free. This is a really relevant topic, and you know, it's very interesting and engaging. So just feel free to type your question in the chat so that we can have, you know, the more engaging discussion towards the topic itself. So while we wait for the questions to come in, and I would like to introduce our next speaker. So as I mentioned earlier on in my introduction, that there will be a short briefing for the Grenoble's master programs. So we have Ms. Celine Foss here. She is the program director of Master of Science Management in International Business from Grenoble. And Celine has been with Grenoble for 17 years, and she played a key role in developing global partnership and establishing academic, administrative, and operational system. So she will take the next 10-15 minutes to run through the MIB program. So Celine, over to you.
Thank you so much, June. And I would also like to thank John for an excellent masterclass. John has been on the program actually since 2006. So we've been knowing each other for the last 15 years. And it's exactly what you will be taught on the program. So June introduced me. Name is Celine Foss, Program Director of the Msc Management and International Business. Before I start this quick introductory session to the program, I just want to make sure that the fact that the program and the school, Grenoble École de Management and SIM, we make sure that the curriculum fits the needs of the employment market. So if there are anyone looking to register for next year, 2022, then there might be small changes into what I'm presenting today. The program comes from Grenoble École de Management in partnership with SIM in Singapore. So this is our campus in Grenoble in France, situated in the southeast of France, surrounded by the Alps, the big mountains, limiting us with Italy and Switzerland. We also have the program in Paris and of course in Singapore. Now the MIB is 25 years old. So this means that we have already a lot of alumni that are in prominent leadership positions already out there in the business world. Today, we have more than 3,300 MIB alumni. Otherwise, in school at Grenoble École de Management, we have more than 35,000 alumni worldwide. So you can see from this slide that the school has several programs from undergraduates to postgraduate programs. And within the international programs, we have the MSc MIB program. Now we say the program is international. Now the program is international through the different modules that are taught, but also of course through the students, the profiles of the students on the program that comes from every country with different cultures and backgrounds, and also very international on the staff and the teachers. Myself, I'm from Norway, but live in France, teach on the program. We have then teachers from all over the world, but as well as the staff. Now, what is important before I really go into the program is to explain that the school, Grenoble École de Management and program is triple accredited. And we're all with 1% of business schools that have these 3 accreditations: AMBA, ASSB and EQUIS. Now, what is important to know here is that these 3 accreditations are international recognitions of the quality of the organization, so GEM, the programs, and of course the degrees it delivers. And the accreditation, they provide actually an independent assessment of the quality of the school's organizational processes, ensuring, of course, that the content and the quality of the programs delivered satisfy, of course, international standards. So that's the part of the accreditation. But the program itself is also ranked in the different rankings. The QS ranking that was out today, actually, we are number 38 out of 100 programs, so a nice place to be. The Financial Times ranking, this figure will change on Monday the 13th of September, where we will get the new ranking for the Financial Times 2021. So a program that is recognized and seen on a worldwide basis, held in SIM in Singapore. Now, the MIB objectives. Firstly, it is you will acquire fundamentals of business and core management and cross-functional business administration subject on the program. Now, the program, as I said, is highly international. So you will be in a group of 20-25 students on campus. The program delivery relies on a mixture of pedagogical methods and techniques, from traditional to interactive lectures. We do also learning activities, case studies. As John mentioned, you do a Harvard case, readings, exercises. But what is very important is all the teamwork that you will be doing on the program. That will help you in developing a range of skills related to, of course, leadership, teamwork, communication, critical thinking, and of course, problem-solving skills. Now, there is also a high degree of personal opportunities on the program. Now, we strongly believe that the classroom is where you learn theory, but by personal development, what we mean is the developing the actual managerial habits and qualities that, of course, are much sought after by today's current global employers. And that's why, as John mentioned, the curriculum is updated on a 2 to 3 years basis, so that we actually teach you what the companies out there today needs as skills and knowledge in their future managers. You also see you learn a language on the course. You will do 60 hours of languages. So if you do it in Singapore, you can choose French or you can choose Mandarin, because that's an important part of your future professional lives, not just understanding and working with people from other cultures, but also understanding the languages and the culture. So language classes aren't just language, but it's also understanding of the culture of now, why choose the MIB program? So management and international business, it's a generalist master's degree, meaning that you will not specialize in any field such as finance, consulting, IT. You will get a global understanding on how an organization functions. This means that our alumni today, or when you are finishing the program, all the doors are open. You will be able to work in any company, in any industry, in any function or any position within any company, because you have an understanding of all the, let's say, all the departments within a company, and you're able to work across departments, because you have an understanding of, if you work in marketing, you have an understanding of what the guys are doing in finance or in the logistics department, operations department. So you really get an understanding of the organization on an international aspect, of course. Now, another thing is that the program is a consolidations master's, meaning that when you come onto the program, all the students on the program come from different backgrounds. So you can come from a bachelor's in engineering, you can come from a bachelor's in consulting, in economics, in management, in history, in social sciences, and you will all be on the program and work together. And actually that's one of the gold dust, or a strong point in the program, is that you will learn as much from each other than you will learn from the lecture, because you will all have different skill sets and knowledge that you will share in the classroom and through the work. And working with people from different cultures, creeds, beliefs, educational backgrounds, but also managing to be successful. That is really a soft skill that is highly sought after in the professional or business world, of course. Otherwise, the MIB is a pre-experienced master's degree. You do not need to have any work experience. Most of our students have 1 to 1.5 years of work experience, but you all are motivated graduates from a bachelor's degree that are looking to learn the key aspects of business and organizational, strategic and operational management. Now, another thing on the MSc MIB program, MSc Management and International Business, and it's also called in French, Manager d'Affaires Internationales. This means you will get 2 diplomas. The French one is the program that has been accredited by the French Ministry of Education. And that is an important part because it means that the ECTS, the 120 ECTS credits you obtain, will be recognized worldwide, okay? So if you're looking to do a doctorate or a PhD later, that will be accepted. So it's important when you look for a master's program that you understand how it functions and that what you are applying to is actually recognized in the country that you are studying. Now, go to Singapore. I'm here in Grenoble today, but I'm very much looking forward to when I can travel back to Singapore and meet SIM administration, our lecturers, and also, of course, the students. Singapore, of course, you will be in an intercultural environment. You will meet people from all over the world. There are big expatriate communities. Our students, learn the cultural diversity that is in Singapore. And on the program, of course, it's contingent to travel restrictions. Last year, we were not able. This year, I really hope we can go for the study trip to Hong Kong. So on the program, not only visiting companies in Singapore, you will also be able to go for a 5-day study trip to Hong Kong. The experience is wonderful. Many of our students stay in Singapore in the 2nd year to do an internship while writing their final management project. Now, these are figures a little bit what it costs or your living affordables in Singapore. I'm not going to go in details into this, but if you need more information, of course, you can contact the SIM administration to get an idea how much money you need per month. The classroom, as I said, on the program, you will be around 20-25 students, so small cohorts, and this gives you a chance for everyone to participate, and a very interactive learning environment where you really get hands-on. You're not sitting in an auditorium where you're just taking notes. You are really participating in the class. And as you can see, mostly 50-50 in gender, women and men, people from all over the world, and an average age of 22. Because most of our students go straight to the Msc Mib after they've done their bachelor's degree. The employability. Now, these figures are actually updated last week. I'm very happy to say that the average annual salary has gone up to 45K, and this is for newly graduated students, so junior managers in whatever industry, in whatever function you are doing. So this is an average. The only percentage now that has gone a bit down is the 75% found employment within 4 months. We've had 93-94%. And this, of course, I'm sure it will go up quickly. But the pandemic, of course, has had a huge impact on how quickly our alumni or our graduates have found a job. And as you can see, the top sectors that are employing is technology, consulting, financial services, but also consumer goods. And more and more of our students now are going into entrepreneurship, where they're trying to start their own companies and successfully. top employers of the program. This has gone on for the last couple of years. Very many students, and these companies are all over the world. So from Paris, you know, from France to Norway, to Singapore, to China, to Australia. So really, we are, or MIB alumni are all over the world. Just to show you quickly what is done in the first year of the program. When you study at SIM, you will visit several companies to get an introduction to the company. If there are any internship proposition, then you will have prepared your CVs, etc., and be able to meet with the different managers. So they've visited Bloomberg, Shopback, Kerry Logistics. There's one picture here from the networking event, because every year we try to organize. Of course, the last 2 years it hasn't happened, but we hope to get back to normality soon. We have a lot of alumni in Singapore, a lot of senior alumni from Grenoble École de Management, not just from the MIB. There is a huge expat community of French people, so a lot of French companies as well. So we try to have this alumni event every year, and it's very nice for actual students to meet people that graduated 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and that have made their lives in Singapore or the surrounding ASEAN countries. Career fair is something that will happen as well at SIM, networking events on campus with companies coming to SIM. There are icebreaking activities for the students in the beginning of the program so that you get to know you. And of course, staff, myself from Grenoble, comes for the induction for the start of the program. Otherwise, you have through the year that are not ECTS linked, but you have all these workshops to be able to develop your professional profile. So CV writing, interview techniques, LinkedIn profile, motivation letters. So you learn as well. And this, of course, is as important as doing the program. You need to be ready when you are done with the program to get as many possibilities of interviews as a master graduate. Now, some of our SIM GEM alumni, now they are alumni, actually, they're all graduated. Alexander here is English. He lived in Singapore, did the MIB in Singapore, and today he's at Deloitte in the UK in mergers and acquisitions. Nikita is now in New York at Happy Day company in New York. So she's Indian, came to Singapore to do the MSc MIB, and is now working in New York. While Kaiden is Singaporean, and he stayed in Singapore and is now working as a consultant at Datalog in Singapore. So you see three different profiles that did the MSc MIB together, and that has evolved and gone all over the world as graduates. This is the curriculum. As I said in the beginning, if things might change within the curriculum. Let me give you an example. Last year, we updated it and we added a module called Business Analytics Management, because we see more and more our graduates need some knowledge within analytics, understanding IA, understanding big data, how do you use it, etc. So that's a new module that fits the needs of what the companies want you to have as skills to become excellent future managers. Also, the entrepreneurship and consulting project module, that is an excellent module that will go towards the end of the year, where you will actually use everything you've learned in the other module within this module, where you will be in a group, in a project, and it will be presented in the beginning of the module, of course. Now, the key dates for the program. So we have one program now starting in October, on the 11th of October. I don't know with SIM if they have stopped the recruitment, but perhaps there are still seats available if you're interested. Otherwise, it'll be for October 2022. So I've said it's a 2 years master's program. The first year is on campus, and the second year you can do an internship or find a job while writing your final management project. Now, on the program, as I said, it's a collaboration between GEM, Grenoble École de Management, and SIM. 75% of the lectures are from Grenoble or are from GEM, and 25% of the lectures are from SIM. So, for example, John Lee, he is an SIM lecturer, but has been teaching now more than 15 years on the program. So the second year fund management project, where that you'll often link to the internship that you do. Otherwise, it can be an academic piece of work. It depends on what the student decides. But there are 2 tracks, professional and academic track. This also, there might be things that will change for next year intake to fit and adapt to the business world that is highly changing, as John mentioned, in the future, because of the pandemic, etc. So this is just an example of the certificate and the admissions criteria. So you need to have a bachelor's degree with a minimum GPA of 60. You need to be fluent in English, so there's different tests that you need to do with a minimum score. Otherwise, you need to write 2 or 3 motivation letters, 1 on intercultural experience, motivation letter, and what you can bring as a candidate on the program of the MIB. Here you have the program fees. All of this information, of course, you can find it on the website, on SIM, and don't hesitate to contact SIM for further information concerning applications to the program. So the deadline, yes, we have 1 more year, but before, of course, the intake in 2022.
Thank you, Celine, for the brief introduction of the MIB program. All right, so for those of you who are still tuning in to us right now, is there any questions regarding the topic, the innovation, technology and innovation, or the program? Just please feel free to type your question in the chat, and we will be able to, answer them. Okay, any questions?
Don't be shy.
Yes, don't be shy. And maybe while we wait for the questions, Celine, would you be able to share with us some commonly asked questions for the program, usually, by the prospects that you have heard of?
Commonly asked, well, it's a 2 years program, but what's interesting is that you're on campus for a year and a half, and then you can actually work or get an internship straight afterwards. You obtain 120 ECTS credits. That is equivalent to a 2 years master's degree. What else on the program? The fact that we have small cohorts, you have the possibilities to really develop all the soft skills that the companies often test you through interviews on. So the interactive presentation skills, working in groups, and something that is very special to the MIB is that I'm a graduate myself from 10 years ago, so I'm an alumni as well. And I've been working now 18 years at GEM, so I know the program very well, and I know, of course, my alumni, the students of the program. And what we set up a couple of years ago is something called the MIB +2, where our students have access to an Excel spreadsheet to see where all graduates or where all students are going in what jobs. So everybody that register on this gives the opportunity for actual students that they contacted in case they have questions. So for example, if we have a student at PwC or at Deloitte and somebody's interested to go working there, they can contact the alumni to just have a quick chat and perhaps ask, what was specific at the interview, how is it best for me to obtain a job, etc. And there you will also see where students are going and what sector they're going, in technology, in finance, in consumer goods, etc. So that's really what we call passing on the baton, so that students that have graduated, they kind of are linked with students on the program. And this has now been going on for, I think, at least 10, 12 years.
Right, right. And also, are you able to share with us, the topic that John is teaching? How is it? Is there any, like further? Which term would the program be happening, and some other details?
Managing technology and innovation. I'm sure John can help out here. It's a 15-hour module, and John has actually taught it for the last 15 years, if I'm not wrong. Correct me, John. It has been updated, of course, with the years, just as John explained in his masterclass, because you need to keep updated what's happening. Excellently evaluated every year, and I'm sure students are using what they have learned, not just in managing technology, but also all in the other modules that they take with them in their first experience in their when they start their professional careers.
Right. So what is the lecturer's profile? Maybe you can just share a little bit more about that on the
Sorry, about
program.
What? Say that again, please.
The
Jen.
Lecturer profile.
The lecturer profile.
The lecturers,
yes, of course. Yes, absolutely. We have academics that are often the doctors, PhD lecturers that are employed by GEM or by SIM. They do a lot of research. We have the typical consultants that come in, that fly in, and because they love teaching and they love meeting young people, and they really are specialized in one field. And then we have let's say the entrepreneurs or the business person who knows exactly what's happening in the business world and comes and teaches on the program and links that with the theory, but also really gives solutions or what's happening exactly in the business world. So we have these three types of professors on the program, and also, of course, again, from different nationalities. So we have people from all over the world in the staff and in the lecture team that teaches. So students, in one way, it's like being in a small society, because they will have to adapt to each other, but at the same time they will have to adapt to the different types of teaching, very different between European style, American style, Asian style, and they will have access to all of these different types of teaching. And that's actually enriching, because if they go into an international environment, that's the same people they will be dealing with, they will be working with. And if it's online or on campus or in the company, that they would know how to deal with people with different backgrounds and different ways of working much more comfortably than if they hadn't studied in an international environment.
Yes, that's absolutely right, because nowadays there's this thing called CQ, other than EQ and IQ. So we have the cultural quotient that's very important in this very globalized world right now.
Oh, absolutely. And what we've seen now, of course, we have also learned a lot, SIM, GEM, through the pandemic. And we see that it's important now, it becomes more and more important to be able to work at the same time online as in a classroom, being able to deal with different teams, different people, different time zones. So all of this really is the students, let's say that we teach them how to fly. They can crash as much as they want through the year on the MIB, but when they start working and being junior professionals, they will be ready for the real world. And they've already tested themselves and crashed a couple of times, but stood up again and learned and changed and done it differently. So of course, now with the program, we will continue. As at SIM, you also have the high flex mode, where students can, if they can't be in class because of course there needs to be specific reasons, can be online while others will be in the classroom. So the ability to now change between being in class, being online. But I want to say, I've said that, but I want to say that the program is an on-site program, and it's much more enriching in a way to be in the classroom and to mingle with the students, because you also get friends for life. You get friends all over the world.
Right, I totally agree with that. And we have some questions coming in. So Austin is asking, is IELTS still required after recently completing a one-year graduate diploma offered by UOL? So I suppose, Augustine, you are not from a country where English is the medium of teaching for your degree, right? So is IELTS still required?
After recently completing a one-year graduate diploma offered by
UOL.
Has she IELTS? Has she studied in English?
Yes.
Okay.
UOL is University of London.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, then it's 1 year. I don't think it's required then.
Right. Okay.
Because you have studied your bachelor's degree in English.
That's great. So Dennis said that what is the difference between an MBA and a Master of Science course offer?
Very good question, Dennis. Actually, there's not much difference. The curriculum, we have an MBA normal one, an executive one at GEM, and the curriculum is pretty much the same. Often on an MBA, you have a possibility to specialize. So it's 90 hours or 3 modules of 30 hours in specialization. And really, the biggest difference is the profile, the students in the classroom. The profile on the MBAs, you need to have a minimum of either 3 or 5 years of management experience, while on the MIB, it's a pre-experience. So all profiles, all students have not really had much professional experience. While on the MBA, you will, the cases, the interaction in class will be with more professional experience, so a bit more mature, let's say. But otherwise, the curriculum is pretty much the same. And from GEM, both programs hold 120 ECTS credits. Now, I want to add something. What is interesting is that I've been in the business now business school for the last 17, 18 years. And 17 years ago, everybody wanted to do an MBA. Today, or the last 5 years, you might see in the different rankings, the MIM program has exploded. And the reason for that is that, excuse me, the reason is that the profiles on the MIM, they are younger and more open to change. Excuse me.
Right. That sometimes, when we talk too much, it happens, I guess. Water is needed at this point of time. Okay, so maybe I can move on while, we wait for Celine to recover. So there's another question saying how deep the language, French or Chinese, will be taught. We'll come to that question a little bit later as well. And in the meantime, is there any other questions that you guys have? It can be with the, regarding the program or with the topic that John has shared about just now. So just feel free to type it over here.
I'm very, very sorry. I got spoke too much, I think.
Yes.
Very sorry.
Did you get some water to help you?
I did. Let me see. Okay. Very sorry. French, Chinese, deep, that depends your level of language. If you are beginner in French, you will be in a beginner class in French. And same in Mandarin.
All right.
And
yes.
Sorry. And they will be for 60 hours, so 30 hours in the first semester and 30 hours in the second semester.
Great. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay. I mean, if there's no further question, or rather, if there's more questions regarding the program after the session, you can actually drop an email to us at study@sim.edu.sg, and we will be able to get back to you to address your question, whether it's, towards John or to Celine. We will actually reach out to them to get the answer for you. All right.
And just, can I add something, June? Is
Mm-hmm.
If anyone wants to ask any questions to alumni or to students who have experienced the year in Singapore on the program, don't hesitate to contact us, and we have students who are more than happy to answer from a student perspective questions that you would have.
Yes, that's right. So don't hesitate to write in to us. It's we always say that making this decision is very important. So always get your research done well, make an informed decision on the program that you want to pursue. So in the benefit of time, we're almost reaching 8:30. And since there's no further question, I will proceed to end the session. Thank you so much, Celine, for the presentation, as well as John.
Thank you, John. Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. I just wanted to add on the FMP, the Final Year Management Project, the students that are in the course they have the choice to decide who would be the tutors that will take the Final Year Management projects. And I've been doing that for a few years now. What we do in the Final Year Management project is that they could, during their internship, after the program is about to end, they will take up an internship, and they basically decide what is the scope and depth of the research that they wish to undertake, and what is the objective of the project. And what I would do is basically guide them through, liaise with the whoever's the organizations, administration, if you like, the person that will be taking care of that person's internship. And then through that, we grade the students, we provide feedback, we provide guidance, the structure for the report, and then it's marked, and and that basically constitutes the final portion of the Final Year Management project. Just a bit of the explanation of the FMP.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
And it gives them also the possibility to specialize in a field while writing their thesis. So it's a good way of getting more deeper into a subject.
Right. That's very informative. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for those who remain behind and for spending your Thursday evening with all of us. And have a great evening ahead, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good evening to you.
Bye-bye.
I will proceed to close the room. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.